So I was talking with a woman recently. She's a photographer, and she's amazing at what she does. Her clients love her work, but she was struggling to sell as much as she wanted to. She wanted to grow her business. She wanted to increase the packages and the volume of work she was doing with each individual client, and it really just wasn't coming together. She was having a hard time getting them to buy in to what she felt they needed. And as we talked, I had her walk me through her sales process. What happens from when you first sit down with somebody to when you actually close the sale. And it turned out she was making a mistake that a lot of people make. I had a financial advisor recently I was working with who had the same exact thing going on, and a lot of us in sales run into this, which is she was front loading that sales conversation with price, which means that sitting down with a new client, when she'd sit down with them, one of the first things they would do is start talking about what the client might want. And at the same time, she's got a little sheet printed up of what she offers. At the same time, she's talking to them about what they want. She's going through and she's showing them how much each thing will cost. Now, what happens when we do this in business, when we do this in sales, is as we're having that conversation, the minute we bring up price, that is now the only thing our prospective customer can think about. Okay, the minute I give somebody a price, whether it's for working with me on, again, financial advising, photography, my coaching, whatever it is, if I lead with price because I want to show this person what it costs, I want to be upfront and honest about that, I am all for all those things. But if I lead with price, my client's brain now is stuck on that number. And everything I say afterwards, either they're not going to hear it because they're thinking about price, or they kind of hear it, but they're always going back to, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Can I afford it? That number is now stuck in their mind. So what I did with this photographer, what we changed in her sales process was rather than not trying to avoid the subject of price, which is also a bad idea, we just moved it. So we took it from the front of the sales conversation, we now put it at the back end. So now her conversations are much more around, what does the client want? What does the client need? How can she best serve the client? Does the client feel that working together would be beneficial for them? Does the client see value in what she has to offer? And then how can she best deliver so that the client gets the most for the work that they'd be doing together? Only at that point, once the client has bought in fully to exactly what's going on, at that point, she then can bring up the price. Perfect. So to do everything that we talked about today, it's going to cost this much. Okay, at that point, what's changed now is rather than the client trying to evaluate everything we're talking about and tie it back to price, price is now simply the last formality that needs to take place for us to start working together. The client knows they want to work with us, they're excited about working with us, and money, rather than being this big hurdle to get over, money is now what it should be, which is just means of entry. Just like I don't get to go to Disneyland until I buy that ticket to get into the park, right? You don't get to work with me until you buy that ticket to get into my world. Now the trick is I've got to show you that good stuff on the front end. If you have more questions on this, check out Apple. They are masters of this, right? We all were ready to buy the iPhone before we knew how much it cost. The minute the new one comes out, they don't advertise, here's how much it costs in the commercial, and start out with that, hey, $600. By the way, here's what you're going to get for that. They show us the phone, they get us tied into this idea of owning it, so we're excited about it. Then they tell us how much it costs. So just changing up our sales process, price at the back end, not hiding anything, but getting that emotional buy-in from the client before we talk about price, that can be huge for your sales.